My friend Bob turns 100 today, and I made it back from Texas just in time for the festivities. He is much beloved by the community, as they say. Should all be so lucky. Here is Bob's 100th birthday cake. Dairy pioneer, University of Illinois graduate. And there was the dairy. 1937 to 1987. Holy cow.
Mr. Miller, on behalf of Monticello High School, we'd like to wish you a happy 100th birthday and many more to come to our #1 Monticello Sages fan.
Well, thank you very much. I can't get over this.
Yeah, and for our present to you today, our girls cheerleading team is going to perform the school song, and the band's going to play it behind them for you.
Tell you actually going through it.
Happy birthday. Thanks for all your support.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
I can't believe this.
Happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Happy birthday. Thank you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Miller. Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Have a wonderful day. Happy birthday. Sorry. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday! I'm Tana Estoncheek. I teach at the high school. Happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Looks like it's already a good day, doesn't it? Happy birthday.
See you later. All right, I got out there and put some
All you're doing is meeting. Don't give yourself away. Careful.
Oh, you did. You ain't Mr. Miller, Pam Wolf, Ron Wolf's daughter, played here for many years with Trudy. Do you remember? We had the Sound of Music in your garage. We had it on the play. Had all sorts of fun in your house. Happy birthday. These are my granddaughters, but she's been to school before. Dad's over in the van, but he says happy birthday too. You and Dad are the last ones in this on Lafayette Street from my childhood.
Thank you, Miss Allender.
That are still here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day.
We got heels.
All right, we gotta go.
Happy birthday. I'm from the Piatt County Journal. I don't think I've met you, but it's nice to meet
Well, that
you.
journal's been awful nice to me.
Well, good. Yeah, News Gazette has too. They did a nice job. I'll let you get to other people, but I wanted to introduce myself.
Front page
That's right.
news.
That's right.
Congratulations, Larry and Lori Stoner. What's Dorothy thinking about this?
Happy birthday, Bob.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Hey, Larry.
Happy birthday, Bob, Michelle Hillard. Thank you. Yeah, you've been so good to everybody in town, making me cry. Happy birthday. Come here, dog.
How you're
It's Shirley. Look, Shirley Catlin.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I got the gray hair now.
Yeah, I haven't seen you for a while.
Happy birthday to you. Larry's working Habitat, so he's working on those houses for Habitat. Happy birthday. If you didn't get my card today, you'll get it tomorrow. Birthday to you.
You're two of the best friends I ever had. Nobody has been as lucky as I have.
How did you end up with my hat?
Except for the people who know
It
me.
reads the same
Here, I
thing.
need to take these for you.
I write stuff, but boy, it's not the same.
One of these has some money in it. It's very heavy.
I'm on the computer all the time.
Well, I hope so.
Looked like pennies from what was breaking out of the edge. So don't get your hopes up.
Nice day, isn't it?
It's a great day. Absolutely. It's a great day.
Happy birthday, sir.
Well, thank you.
We missed
I'm Rick Blankenberg. This is my wife, Paula.
Nice to meet
You
you.
got a pretty one there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
it's nice of you to
This is
come
my
over.
son there. This is Mr. Miller.
Hi.
Hi there.
I always ask about
Tell him happy birthday.
because I go by the house. We walk by the house,
He's 93 years older than you.
but I don't know what it was.
See how I lived before me.
Oh my God.
You remember Blankenberg? Phil, you know Phil Blankenberg?
Yeah, that's my dad. Yeah, we live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. I do. And we're just here for the week, and we
This is our
happen to be here during your special day.
Alexandra and Mike.
It's kind of special, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I believe it. Sure. I wanted to get a picture with your dad too.
It's a little easier now.
God, you're looking great. I said you haven't changed a bit. White shirt and tie still.
Do I get to kiss him too? This was one of the best gals right here. I'm about to talk out of street now.
Took him a long time. This is my oldest grandson. He's from Texas. His dad used to come up to the dairy all the time. Yeah, when he was little.
I think
Oh, I think about you every time I come by. You and your damn coffee cans. You're looking real good.
I'm going.
Sometime,
She
yeah.
just won't tell me where, but I got no idea.
Sometimes he's kind of mean, but, you know, whacking down.
He always was.
Yeah,
She's quite a gal.
yeah. So you got a big party tonight?
No, my dinner party was the day before yesterday.
Ah,
My family.
yeah, yeah.
There's one gal that I'd like to have here today, but she doesn't work today, so I don't think.
Fly off your cheek.
Well, whatever.
He likes you.
That must be sweet or something.
Oh, now I know that ain't true. But we just wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Well, love, how you doing?
Here's two of the best friends that
Love you nuts.
I, yeah.
You know,
And give you a hug. We got lots of pictures. So
good. I'd like to have somebody.
What you yelled at.
you've probably been standing in there just to watch and
We were
see what
scared
we've
you
been
would
doing.
come out and give us a.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you thank you for hiring my mom and daddy to work for you. That was long years back.
They were good people there.
Well, you were too. And I just love paying you back that way. It's the only way I know how. So I appreciate it. Because had it not been for you, we wouldn't be here. Well, you have a great 100th birthday.
Well, I'm so lucky. I've said to many people lots of times, and there was a luckier man that ever lived in Monticello.
That's right.
Have you had a birthday cake yet to eat?
Listen, I want you to see that.
Oh.
Be careful
was worried
that you weren't gonna have a birthday cake.
Yeah, I was going to go to the grocery store and get you a happy birthday cupcake if nobody brought a
You
cake.
got lots of birthday cards too, didn't you?
Yes. Go ahead.
I know you've never seen another one like it.
Oh my gosh!
Look at
Oh, isn't
That is so neat. Has anybody taken
Well, we
pictures
put the
of
line eye stuff out there for you too, Bob, because we knew you were a graduate.
That is the most photographed cake in
I guess
history.
when you live to be 100, birthday, you deserve one of these.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
really
get
neat.
you right there.
Neat, neat, neat.
But the gal that bakes that, she's been doing that for 10 years. My gals that come and help me, they come through that back door, go right over there, and they've gotten a big kick out of it.
Yeah.
And every day that they've been here is marked off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty neat.
Yep. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Well, we better let you
Well-
get back to enjoying your party. But congratulations again. My brother and sister both said to say happy birthday to you. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah. Congratulations again.
And we're looking forward to 101.
Yeah. 101.
Okay.
And you better keep your promise.
gonna get a plain old cake then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start over.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
So you're 100 years old today, Bob. Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to be 100?
Well, I think most people would like to live to be 100, but it isn't all fun. Whenever you start losing your balance and still have a big appetite, and there are so many changes that you have to adjust yourself to, and it's tough.
A midnight trip to the refrigerator becomes a new hazard.
Yeah. How many trips?
I don't know. How many times do you get up to get something to eat in the middle of the night?
Well, I do that very frequently, but I don't go to bed until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, maybe we need to move a refrigerator to your bedroom.
I am sorry to say that I'm watch television a lot more than I should because I get all very, very upset at what I see and what I hear, and as a result of it, I finally shut it off at 2 o'clock in the morning, go to bed. Then I sleep well. And here's a guy my age that stays in bed usually about 12 hours. And
well, you're a growing boy, you need your rest.
Yeah, I've got 2 wonderful gals that come. One is Jackie and one of them is Jackie Jr. That's Jackie Jr. over there.
Does she have a real name, Bob? Does she have her own name?
Yeah, she got a Jessie.
Okay.
Jessie and Jackie. That's unusual right there. But both of them go way out of what you would expect people to do for you. They're 2 dandies.
So, what did you think of all the people that were here today?
Well, I can't imagine that ever happening. I don't know how many band members there were out here, but there must have been 50, probably.
And cheerleaders too?
Yeah. And then there was Sonny Tate. I was tickled to death. He's the guy that's been writing for the News Gazette. I think he's around in his 60th year. So I knew him real well when he was a Monticello High School basketball player. He didn't play football, but he's been a long time friend. And then my 2 neighbors, one across the street south, and the other one lives in where my grandparents lived. And they're 2 wonderful neighbors. I think they get as big a kick out of it though as I do have the pleasure of having it in my backyard.
Right in your own ready-made basketball court.
Yeah.
So when did you first start playing basketball?
When did I?
Yeah.
Probably when I was 5 years old.
Really?
I used to, I remember that when I was in the 1st grade, I started bouncing a ball, a little sponge ball, and I would bounce that, I'm sure, the first day I went to school, I'd bounce that damn ball. And then at home, and I lived just 1 block down the street here, I soon rigged up little baskets, and I just shot baskets all my life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be outstanding in something. I think most of us do.
Yeah.
And I suppose I got quite a name for the ability I had of taking care of that little rubber sponge ball, and then that developed into a regular sized basketball, and you probably saw the cake that people know. The emphasis that I put on athletic all my life, and there was nobody lived a happier life than Bob Miller. It's been wonderful.
Well, that's fantastic. Let me ask you a question. What do you think it is that was the most helpful in helping you live to be 100? Do you think it was genetics, or the athletics, or just luck?
It was, I came from a wonderful family, and I was Mama's pet. My dad never called me Robert, he called me Mama's pet. And that's the kind of a life that I was exposed to from the day I was born clear up till I got married. And then all my sisters, 5 of them, they were kind of proud of their brother because he was a good basketball player, a good football player, and was either president or secretary or something of the 4 years in high school, which was, I had a teammate, Harry Combs. I outscored Harry, who later was the basketball coach over at Illinois for 20 years. But I was, in our high school days, I was just a little bit better than Harry. And Harry died when he was 77, and here I am still living at 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, you shot differently, didn't you? Didn't you shoot
yeah,
overhand?
I started, nobody was shooting one-handed. And by bouncing that rubber ball, you don't use 2 hands, you just use one. And so when I got to being on the basketball floor with a basketball, I was used to using my right, and that was unusual at that time. And I was a one-handed basketball player.
And you still had to tip off after every basket back then, correct?
Yeah, you had to go to center jump, and basketball was quite different than it is today.
Yeah.
But
do you think it's better or worse than when you played?
Well, it's the real good players are black now, and that's
a big difference. Say that wasn't that way when you were playing?
Yeah. I don't even remember playing against a black basketball player.
Wow.
There, one day.
They just weren't at that time.
No, and now you watch television and they're just, a lot of teams don't have any white players at all.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's changed so much.
Well, now, let me ask you a question. You were pretty important at your high school, weren't you?
Yes.
But you were also kind of a puck, weren't you?
Yes.
Tell me about some of the things you did for fun at school.
Well, I was telling who was I talking to yesterday that wanted to know some of the things that I did in high school. Well, there were several, and probably the most unusual one was 2 blocks down the street here. I had a boyfriend, and I spent a lot of time with him. He lived in the house that's still there, that had a front porch. It just didn't, the porch didn't have, it had a roof.
But it just had pillars on the corner.
Yeah, it was an open porch is what it was. And there was this, birds built their nests up around in that open porch.
On the corners.
Yeah. And I got in my head one time that I'd like to catch one of those sparrows and do something with it at school. So I, at that time, there was a station here in town that sold rubbers. And so I bought a package of those. And I tied one of the condoms with a rubber band and put that condom, tied it around this sparrow's leg. And then school took up each morning at 8 o'clock, and so I took my sparrow and the condom, and I went to school at 7:30. And then I had a friend that was the very, he made everybody, there's 200 and some students, he wrote poems about people and so forth. And so in the assembly hall down there, we had desks and a drawer that pulled out to put your books and things in it. And so I took this sparrow with the condom and put it in his desk drawer and got the heck out of there. And so at a few minutes before 8 o'clock, Joe Curry was the guy. He comes and goes to his seat. We had about 250 seats in the assembly hall, and he opened the drawer and out flew the sparrow with the rubber. And the whole north side of the assembly hall was all windows, and that sparrow flew and banged against the window and dropped to the floor, and kind of didn't know what was the matter. He never experienced a window before, and then it had that rubber on it tied to his leg. So he took off, and on the south side of the assembly hall there was a clock, and it flew and lit on the top of that clock. And all morning long, that sparrow flew from the clock to the window, from the window back to the clock. And you can imagine with all those students, finally...
You got a pretty big laugh, didn't you?
Yeah. And at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, here comes the president of the school board.
Uh-oh.
And they're bound and determined to find out who did that. they never did find out who did that.
Well, I think they know now.
But
The good news for you, though, is I don't think any of them are here to do anything about it.
then the next thing that I did, I didn't like them locking up the assembly hall at noon.
Yeah.
They wanted you to go home and eat or bring your lunch and go to the cafeteria and eat, but they didn't want you in that assembly hall.
Sure.
And they locked the doors. And so I didn't like that. I had a girlfriend that we would spend the noon hour a lot of times in the assembly hall, me holding her hands. Well, once in a while I'd give her a kiss, you know. Well, the superintendent of schools didn't like that. And so they decided to lock up the assembly hall, and that made me mad. So I pulled the hinges out of one of the double doors so that when they unlocked the door and opened the door, well, it fell over on them. I was right there when the principal of the high school opened the door, and the door fell, and they were heavy, and he hit the floor with the door on top of it. Well, I was there and helped him up. I was a nice guy, and so I helped him up, and there were about 30 kids saw all this.
Yeah, yeah.
They were there wanting to go in the assembly hall. And I noticed my English teacher was one of the 30 or 40 people that were waiting to go inside. And I thought, boy, I'm in trouble. There's my English teacher saw this. Saw me pull the hinges out, and saw me help the principal of the high school, help him back on his feet, and act like nothing had happened at all. And so I thought, in that afternoon, the whole school board was down there, and they talked to the teachers and some of the students to try to find out really what happened. And I thought, well, my English teacher will surely tell me, and I'm going to get maybe expelled from school. That teacher never told. Catherine Turner was her name, and up till about 3 years ago, she died. And she had written me a birthday card for all these years after I suppose I probably have 40 or 50 cards. I've got a lot of cards.
Yeah.
She wrote me a Christmas card every year. She had no intention whatsoever to get me in trouble.
Maybe she wanted the assembly hall open too.
Well, it could be. Well, I know that all those kids that were there and saw all this, they all wanted in the assembly hall. A lot of them had girlfriends, and some of the...
It was cramping your dating life.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Then, I can't understand why somebody didn't push that But even the superintendent or the principal of the high school, they didn't feel like.
Well, they didn't have video cameras back then. They just had to guess at who did it.
Yeah. Well, then the one that created more excitement was I was taking chemistry at that time, and I found out how to make a stink. If you take sulfuric acid, put it in a pan, and add some iron filings to that, it smells like hell. So there was a tunnel from the boiler room, a building right, and it's still there at the high school, where they had a couple boilers there, and they had some, at that time, they had some of the first air conditioners there in that building, and then all that hot air and cold air came through that tunnel to cool or heat the high school. So and you got into that tunnel by a double door from the high school or the boiler room. And so I had no problem whatsoever taking my sulfuric acid and my iron filings and my pan from the hall of the high school into the tunnel. And then I put the pan in the tunnel, and then I got the hell out of there. And that odor, terrible, stinks, traveled all the way through the high school. And in about 15 minutes, that high school was empty. They were all...
Got an afternoon off, did you?
They were out in the yard breathing fresh air. And then nobody... I was the only one that knew who did it.
Yeah.
But everybody knew who did it. I mean, because I had done some kind of amusing things. And another one of those amusing things was there was a guy, a roommate of mine, that he liked to play with matches, if you can imagine that. And he was always striking matches.
Yeah.
And he was smart. One of the better students in my class.
Sure.
And so one day he was at the east doors of the high school. There were two barrels in there. One was empty and one was, well, they were both for throw waste.
Sure.
in the barrel.
Garbage cans.
Yeah. And this can't think of his name right now. But anyhow, he was standing there striking matches and throwing them in the empty barrel. Well, I came through the door and saw him doing that. And I thought, you're crazy. Why you do that, I have no notion.
Sure.
So I take the barrel that has some paper in it and dump it in the barrel that he was throwing matches in. And then it flamed, and this guy that was striking these matches, there was a bell there that you pull a rope if there's a fire.
Yeah, yeah.
He went over and he pulled the thing, and of course that means get out of the building, there's a fire. And so again, the school emptied. Once was from what they smelled, and the other was because there was a fire in the building. And this guy that struck all these matches, he could have told on me because I did the damage. I threw some paper in the barrel that he was striking matches in. And I thought, well, he'll tell on me.
Yeah.
Because I built the fire. He was striking the match, but I did the damage. That guy was called in the office and told his story. And they kicked him out of school for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he never told on me. He was a friend.
Yeah.
He was striking the matches, but he didn't build the fire.
Yep. Yep.
And that son of a gun went to the University of Illinois at the same time I did. And we were buddies.
Yeah.
After that.
No doubt.
He was dismissed from school for 2 weeks. And he never told me. But there was a lot of people, students, and even some of the faculty
Sure.
knew things that I did that they wouldn't tell.
Yeah.
They were amused.
Well, you weren't cruel. You weren't trying to hurt people.
No, I never hurt anybody.
Except for maybe the principal the door fell on.
You know, why that teacher never, but I've got letters in my books there of letters that this teacher that saw me do that. She died about 5 years ago.
You know, if you'd been a bad student, she might have told on you.
They were amused at what I thought of to do.
Yeah.
Well, I am kind of amused at what I did after I got married and ran a business. I did crazy things also. There's a sample of that. A year ago,
Yeah.
I was 99 and
Wait a minute, you have to get to be 99 before you hit 100?
yes, you have to do that.
There it is, Bob. I see it. Looks pretty good. So you've been counting down for a year. So let me ask you a question, Bob. We've talked about you in high school and some of the fun and important things you did there. Why don't you tell us when you met Dorothy?
I met Dorothy I lived at the McKinley Foundation right next to a big house that was where the girls lived in that house, and Dorothy was one of the houses. So one of my sisters lived in that house, and they introduced me to Harriet, Dorothy's sister. And I had a date with Harriet, took her to the theater, brought her back home, called her a couple days later, and she had another date. And I said, "You've got a sister, is she busy?" And she said, "I'll ask her." And she introduced me to Dorothy. So I had dated her sister first, and then Dorothy. There was so much difference between Dorothy and her sister as there was day from night. And I thought, these two can't be sisters. One of them was real forward, and she liked to be hugged and kissed and so forth. But Dorothy didn't. Very sweet. She was, well, I just almost fell in love with her on the first date. And so that's how I started to know Dorothy. And then I was able to finish out the school year, and I dated her 2 or 3 times a week. And then the next year, her dad took her out of the university and put her to work in Decatur. And there was a little college of some kind in Decatur to learn how to get a bookkeeping job. And so he pulled her out of University of Illinois and put her in this little school in Decatur. And so that, I didn't like that very well. And his reasoning was, you only, well, I think he found out that Bob Miller was kind of ornery in high school, and he didn't want his daughter.
Yeah. Hard to believe, you were such a nice boy.
Yeah. So I had to, in the summertime, I had to drive to Decatur, as well as on this side of Decatur. What's the name of that town? Saratoga. And that's how Dorothy and I got acquainted. But I had to finish over in Illinois. I had to finish my college education with Dorothy in Decatur, going to a little college of some kind down there. And then it was shortly after I graduated from University of Illinois, Dorothy and I got married. And
That was in 1938?
Yes, 19.
February. So you were married in February of 38, and you went to Chicago and went to the Trianon, the Aragon, and the Black Hawk Ballroom and danced, right?
Yeah, we went to saw a hockey game. Well, we saw pretty much everything that was offered. Chicago Theater. We were there for the biggest part of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And had a wonderful honeymoon.
How many years were you married?
73.
73. Pretty much all good ones?
Huh?
All good ones?
All good ones?
Yeah.
Oh, a wonderful life. I never, in 73 years, I never saw my wife cry. And that's the kind of a relationship Dorothy and I had. She was the perfect wife and mother. Look at the kids that she raised.
Tell me about your kids.
Well, Tim turned out to be a doctor in the largest hospital in the state of Illinois. He is the boss of that hospital, and it's got 800 doctors, and he was the boss, and he still is the boss. And Tom he was a good athlete. He played football and basketball in high school, and he wanted to go to West Point, and I didn't want him to go to West Point. I thought, well, you'll live the life of a
Soldier.
soldier, yeah, and I didn't like that. But he just wouldn't take no for an answer.
Well, he's like his dad.
He wanted to do what he wanted to do. And I wasn't happy about it at all. But
That's what he wanted, and so you helped him get it.
Yeah. And so he graduated from West Point then in 4 years. And Dorothy and I went out to West Point. That's quite a school. And we I suppose we did 4 years he was there. I think we were there 8 times.
Yeah.
And visited, which was real interesting.
Turned out to be a very good experience.
Yeah.
Tell us about your daughters.
Well, Tamara was a very, very popular girl in the high school. And at homecoming, she was elected queen. And then we had a Western Week here in town, and the Western Week had a queen. Tamara was elected queen in the high school and elected queen at the celebration that Monticello had.
Sure.
And so she was the queen twice in 2 months. So you saw Tam here.
Yep.
Yeah. Very popular girl. Trudy. Was not a real popular girl in anything. She was spoiled.
The youngest.
The youngest, yeah. And she came, I think, 13 years after Tamara was born.
Yeah.
So we spoiled Trudy. We wanted her real badly. Tim, Tom, and Tam were gone. And so we spoiled Trudy.
So tell me about the dairy a little bit.
Dairy?
Yeah.
Well, I graduated from Illinois in the dairy technology diploma. And both of the professors in the dairy technology school knew me from reading about me in the Champaign News Gazette. And I got to be personal friends of both of those professors in the dairy school. And they did everything under the sun to educate me. They kind of liked me. And then when I graduated, they remained personal friends. And I was guided in my establishment of a dairy business with these 2 professors over in Illinois.
Yeah.
They just loved to have me come over and ask them questions, you know. And they kind of led me into look at the paper milk carton, and you ought to set that as a goal.
Yeah.
to throw away all the glass bottles and put your product in a paper milk carton. So I had all the good advice and guidance in establishing the company that makes the machine that fills the cardboard container instead of putting it in a glass bottle. So I had a real close association and all their advice.
Yeah.
And I built I had already built a dairy business that when I took it over, it was bottling 400 quarts of milk a day. And I did develop that into 4,000 gallons of milk due to the help of 2 professors over at the university. They liked my imagination.
Yeah.
Printing on the milk carton. They didn't teach me that.
Never been done.
They taught me to buy the carton, but didn't say anything about printing on it, just milk and so forth. And so they became lifelong friends, and that's pretty good to have a couple of professors at the University of Illinois. He knew every large dairyman in the country.
Yeah.
And both of those guys were just like fathers to me. And I made a lot of trips over to ask them questions. I remember one of the things they did, they got me to buy a homogenizer so that I would put out homogenized milk in Monticello. They had it in Champaign, but there wasn't no small dairy like me.
Sure.
They weren't homogenizing milk. I don't know whether you know what homogenization is.
Oh yeah, before then your cream was on the top of your milk.
Yeah. So I had wonderful, and they liked the idea of me buying a printing machine and printing on the side of the milk carton. And I've got it here in my possession now, album after album of the milk carton that I printed on. I suppose I've got several hundred.
Pretty remarkable.
But I grew into a pretty good sized dairy from 400 quarts a day
to 4,000 gallons.
To 4,000 gallons.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, what would you say if you were summing up your life to someone? What would you tell them? What would you describe your life? You've said it before, being at the right place.
I had wonderful parents, and my dad was Mr. Monticello.
Yeah.
My mother was Mrs. Monticello. They both were in it. Well, my mother started the PTA, Parent Teachers Association. My dad was president of the school board.
Yeah.
And they were real popular people here in Monticello. And then their son comes along and is a damn good athlete. And so my parents got a lot of publicity. I got a lot of publicity because I was a good athlete.
Yeah.
And I was elected to a class offices all 4 years of my high school. I was elected even as a freshman. And my students liked me, or they wouldn't have elected me as an officer here. A teacher sees me pull the hinges out of the door and she didn't tell me. And there's I could just about do anything with no worry.
Yeah.
And I never hurt anybody with the pranks that I pulled, but they all saw the humor in it. And when I've been here, at one time I had 40 employees. I only lost one that ever quit.
Yeah.
And this one person had a job as caretaker of the Bument Cemetery. And he came to me one day and he said, Bob, I've been offered a job and they're paying me almost double what you're paying me. And said, I don't want to leave here, but I can't turn that money down. And I said, well, you go home and sleep over it, and if you want to be a dairyman, you've got a job. If you want to dig holes in the ground and bury people, if that's what you want to do because it's more money, that's what you'll have to do. Well, he went to the Bument Cemetery, and that's the only, out of all those 40 employees, I never lost any of them.
Yeah.
They all liked to print on the milk cartons. They liked a lot of things that I did in Monticello. And, well, I had Laura Peck that ran the dairy bar for 37 years. And she died with me by her bedside over in Champaign. And I lost, after you have somebody for 37 years running the most popular eating place in all around here.
Yeah.
She did. And she stayed right there till the thing that when she went to Carl Clinic, and she died in one of the hospitals over there. I went over. She was in the hospital probably for 2 or 3 months. I never missed one night all that time of going over and visiting with her. I just can't get over even yet of all the things that she did for me. And my mother was the Queen 1. Laura Peck was Queen 2. Dorothy is the 3rd queen. And then Jackie, one that here now. And that Jackie, she just does everything.
Sure. And it
isn't all roses. You gradually lose teeth.
the parts wear out.
Yeah. There's lots of places in your body, and look how I get around with a walker.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing of it is too, you lose your memory. But I've got Jackie and I've got
Jesse?
Jesse that just take care of me like they like to do it. But getting old is quite a privilege. But it isn't all roses, because there's so many things that I wanted to do that I can't do. And up until I was 90, I could do anything.
Yeah.
I could work on the farm.
Yep.
And the fact is, when I got to be 90, I was starting to say, hey, I can't run the farm and do a real good job of it, and still do go to basketball and football games. So at 90, my life changed. And then Dorothy died. And I said, I want to die 1 minute after Dorothy did. And I didn't. I kept on living.
Well, you learned to live again.
But then Jackie comes along, and right after the funeral comes right here in this kitchen and says, what do you want for supper tonight? And I said, what do you want to know? She said, I'm cooking it. And she said, I promised Dorothy that I'll take care of Bob.
Yeah.
And so she's still here.
Well, that's excellent, Bob.